طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I'd like to welcome everybody to our free executive webinar series. Tonight, the topic is very interesting. It's about public-private partnership called Realizing Visions, Why, When, and How Public-Private Partnership is Your Ideal Instrument أو بالعربي تحقيق الرؤى. لماذا ومتى وكيف تكون الشراكة الناجعة بين القطاعين العام والخاص الطريقة المثالية لإدارة وإنجاح الاستثمارات العامة. We do this together in collaboration with Saudi Academy, and also we are partners with PMI KSA chapter. In fact, first of all, again, I'm sorry to relay the apologies of Dr. Khalid Bawazir, Engineer Fahd Al Ghadi. They are currently on a plane, and no wonder it's Saudi Academy, so they travel a lot due to their duties. Hopefully, they will be with us in the next session, which is on October 9, inshallah. We'll talk about it at the end. So allow me to first of all welcome my two colleagues and panelists, friends and brothers. Engineer Hisham Dabbagh. أهلا وسهلا Hisham. Hisham is joining us from Saudi. Welcome, Hisham.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you. And Dr. Ahmed Awad. Welcome, Dr. Ahmed Awad. Dr. Ahmed Awad is our partner, joining us from London, I believe, Prague Global Office.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sani.
Thank you. So let's start the session tonight. What we're gonna do? There will be a presentation which is delivered by Dr. Ahmed and by Engineer Hisham. During the presentation, we might have like some discussions, all the three of us. And as soon as we finish, we are going to have a small panel to discuss 3 or 4 important points, which is considered part of the whole session, whole webinar. And then we will take the questions and answers. For that, I please advise you all to write the questions in the QA, not in the chat, because we are going to look at the QA. And we are not going to answer them directly. We are going to answer them after we finish the 2 presentations. So having said that, let me start. I think okay. I believe you all know me. There is a problem in the control. Goes back and forth, I think, or there is a delay. So I'm just waiting to see the next slide moving. No, this okay. So Hisham, welcome, Hisham. Hisham is a PPP expert senior advisor, and he is accredited by the World Bank, PPP, over 20 years of experience. And he used to be the Director General of Commercial Advisory for Privatization within the National Center of Privatization, NCP and PPP, 2017 until 2024. And with that, he is going to bring a wealth of experience and knowledge of the situation, of the best practices, of the practice on the ground as well as part of many other entities. He's a world-class subject matter expert on the domain and others. So welcome, Hisham. We are happy to have you with us tonight.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
أهلا وسهلا. Then also I would like to welcome our partner, Dr. Ahmed Awad, who manages Proc Global based in London, with our plans perhaps in 2025 to have advisors UK as well. which is in the process, inshallah. Now, Dr. Ahmad, he is a world-class expert. He's an accredited mediator, PPP expert, with over 30 years of experience operating on huge giga projects within the whole MENA region, UK, Europe, and elsewhere. And also, he is accredited by APMG to provide the CP3P, the certified project program, the certified public-private partnership, sorry, this PPP tonight, program by APMG for the World Bank. So welcome, Ahmed.
Thank you so much for this opportunity and welcome everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. So I believe we are going to start right now with Ahmed. So Mustafa, if you can give the control to Ahmed, I'd really appreciate it.
Yes, Doctor. So the steering wheel is you now, Dr. Ahmad. Dr. Ahmad, you are muted.
Absolutely, yes. Hello, everyone. I will start with the first slides based on the discussion I had before with Dr. Saadi and Engineer Hisham about what is the PPP. It's about the procurement, because the perception of the people, or many people in either from government or private sector, it's by the end of the day, PPP is a procurement. It's procuring facility or assets. And it's not privatization. It's not like a transfer the full asset to private sector. Where بالنسبة للتريبل بي, there are two types of triple B, either user pay or government pay. So سامبل ليها لو طريق وفي toll, or لو بتبني facility للجفرمنت وبيس على زي المستشفى hospital or school, والبيمنت بيست على البرفورمانس او الاداء الموجود. السلايدز ديت هي موجوده طبعا في الاي بي ام جي. دي بتوضح what is from zero private risk, which is it's not a complete privatization يعني, or either 100% pure simple procurement, traditional procurement, which is make a tenders and having a contractor build a project and check hand, and that's all finished. So it's in the middle, there are the triple P. How can I say? I need to move. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I'm not controlling well.
No, you have to click it once, have faith, and wait.
Okay. Let's run so much. Okay. Yes. Okay. That's the slides I want. Okay. I give here very good example about in the triple B's, for example, TPM, design, build, finance, operate, and maintenance. And زي ما انتم شايفين هنا بيكون في contract مع between the private sectors and the public. However, at the same times في الايكوتي انفستورز هم دول هم اللي بيبتدوا بدايتها دايما بالايكوتي انفستورز مع بيأسسوا الاس بي في. و once بيأسسوا الاس بي في اللي هي سبيشال بيربس فيكل، هذه الاس بي في بتتخاطب اللندرز وتخاطب مور ايكوتي فاينانسرز وتخش to sign the contract. احيانا in principle لو agreement in principle ده بيكون بيس اساسي مع اللندرز، ان هو بيكون في in principle في initial agreement في الاس بي في مع اللندرز ومع الايكوتي، ودي بتحدد كمان بتفرق اوقات كبيره جدا في النيجوشيشن مع الببليك سيكتورز. وبيست عليها بيكون معاهم الكونتراكتورز والاوبريشن اند مينتنس to sign the agreement and then build the projects. There are many different forms of triple P, either DOO or POT or PO, sorry, build, own, operate, or build, own, operate and transfer, or PLOT, or DB, or DBF, or DBFO. يعني these slides give you a lot of different type of names for the triple P. Next slide. I think. It's the main stages. We can call it the 6 main stages in the triple P is based on identification of the project. This is still within the public sector. They identify which project. They have, for example, 100 projects. For an example, they have 100 projects as a public or government or public sectors. They have between 100 projects. They identify what is the projects will be suitable to make it a procurement, either make traditional procurement or do the procurement via P. And then from this screen, we go for appraisal, which is further details. It's not every single project will go through the triple P, just only limited number of the projects. And then this is in stage 1. And then we'll not take all of them. We make another stage, which is the screening for appraising and preparing project contract to see which one is in details. You have more details, drawings, more, not concept design, more details about how we go into the procurement, how to evaluate the different bidders or different investors, different proposals. And then at the end stage, they doing structuring and drafting tender documents. This is just before the launch and launching the project. The challenge in triple P is taking time. It's not like a traditional procurement. It's this 3 stages up till tender and award is could be sometimes up to 2 years. And then the contracting and construction, and then managing an operation, and then handover. And even handovers, I was in different projects. I was engaged in even handover. You can end up by disputes. So it's so every single stage is need to when we're preparing in the first 3 stages and including the tender and award is the negotiation with the contract is need a proper analysis for what is the risk. Always what is the risk from public sector, and the same for private sector. When they are engaged. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Before you move on the next slide, allow me to interrupt you.
Yes, sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So my first question to you and also to Hisham here is, why are we considering PPP in the first place? What is the reason? Simply. Is it because the government does not have enough fund to do all the projects they want to do, and they want to use the fund of the private sector? Or is it because they want to share the risk? Or maybe is it because they want to have shared ownership for providing public services, or something else? So why in the first place to consider? Yeah?
It's all what you propose. In addition, is with the private sector, I can bring efficiency. I can bring expertise. If a contractors sign a road where build a triple P projects, they will be very keen about finish on time and keen about the whole life cycle of the project or the whole life cycle of the facility. So because they're doing the facility management, they are very interested about this one. So you can get more input from expertise from the private sectors. Another issue is as well with the economy on macroeconomic level. Having private sectors, the cycle of multiplier effect on the economy is really getting higher once we got private sectors part of the triple P. So in macro level, it's very good for the economy, for macroeconomy, when we have, especially in certain countries where the private sectors, they are not heavily engaged, or the portion they have 30 or 40% of the economy on GDP, so that you find the government's more interested to bring the private sectors engaged there. And I think it's maybe Hisham can add much more than me here as well in this issue.
أخوي هشام, what do you have?
Yes, just answering to your question, maybe you were a bit faster than my turn. I was actually answering this question in my slides, but anyway.
Oh, that's okay. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Since you raised it already, but Dr. Saadi, I think the reason why PPP, as you all know, that the country is undergoing a huge transformation under Vision 2030. And this substantial transformation aims to diversify the economy and, of course, reduce the dependency on oil. So allowing or inviting private sector to share with the government the assets, the services that can be offered to private sector, where private sector can take more role in actually developing those sectors. Because as you all know, as the Dr. Ahmed also mentioned, efficiency is an objective with privatization, and we have a number of successful transactions from last century, actually, from the 80s, which I'll come in more details in my presentation.
Okay, thank you both. I think there's Dr. Abdullah who shared on the webinar chat, but only with host and panelists, a beautiful answer that includes all what we discussed. Perhaps, Mustafa, you can make his contribution public so that everybody else can see it.
Yes,
if you can, Mustafa. Okay. So, I give the flag back to Dr. Ahmed. Sorry for interrupting you. Please proceed. You were talking about the life cycle and how long it takes with respect to normal procurement to have a PPP contract or engagement in place, and you discussed the 6 phases, and I believe these 6 phases are the World Bank standard.
Yes. And maybe you find different standards in European Bank and others, but it's by the end of the days, all of them they are in the same concept, the same. Maybe it's different naming or something like that.
Okay.
And I need to move to.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah. There are different interests from different parties in the PPP project. Either for both of them, they are looking for economic viability, risk allocation, and the good governance and political support. So it is no point as well, even for private sector, not only public sectors. Will not be interesting to invest in a country where they are not adopting the intention to adopt the PPP projects or privatization. But it's in the situation we may have in some countries in Europe when the politician change or government change, you find socialist or right wing or left wing, some more favor for private sector, some not more favor for the private sectors. All this send very, very strange signal. And this is the importance of having some sort of stability, political stability, in the term of the attracting the investor in investing in PPP project. I'll try to run a little bit quickly because you need to listen to Engineer Hisham as well. He has a very good example about Saudi, and that's what we are keen about it today. I will in looking for private sectors, they're looking for financial packaging, investment, something very important, clear entry strategy and exit strategy. And in many countries where the currency fluctuation or some restriction about the exit of the foreign or the profits from the projects and all these things in foreign currency, this is something very important as well. And another important thing with the exit strategy, what if we end up by a dispute or disagreement? How I can make a settlement for these agreements? how I can, if I have a claim, how I can settle these claims. All these things, this need to be some sort of clarity for private sectors before to enter the market in public sectors, in triple P, I'm sorry. So I'm moving to the next slide. Yes. So entry strategy is very important when either for public or private. From my experience in different projects, contract management is essential and very important, not during the construction, from day one, and understand what is my right and my obligations. And I was engaged in different cases where there are disputes at the end of the handover of the project after 20 years. And you find we end up by digging in 20 years communication and agreements and correspondence about what is the right and who has the right and who has obligation and all these things, and compensation for breaching of anything within the contract or the agreements. So knowledge of the contract is very important. Early project phases and clear communication as well, keeping all the records of the project and the project finance as well. It's very important issues for triple P for private sectors, because they looking for what I can get from the bank, local banks, financial institute, how it's running, and all these things. It's not only like a separate island between the public sector, who is like for example Ministry of Housing or Ministry of Health, and private sector. Is more than that. It's about the whole system and clear KPI and the project management of the project and managing stakeholders. I'm trying to move to the next one. And stakeholders is another important issues, because the stakeholders, the public, they have certain understanding about privatization. Privatization, they're looking as a triple P as a privatization. Triple P is not privatization, as I mentioned before. But the goal is always from the private sector to be partners with public. It's about if user pay services or assets, usually you find the public has become worried about the cost and the cost increase. So this something is need how to manage the public and how to communicate with them, because to avoid the rejection or conservatives approach against the private sectors when they engage with the public here. In the project triple P in project risk, which is very traditional for any project, construction risk. This is something very critical as well. Change in demand. If I build a project for motorway, and then there are another alternatives, highway, or the government decided to build another motorway, which could be used as an alternative for my original one. This will become as an investor, this will become big challenge. So change in demand, this is big risk, and this is usually need to be managed in the contract, about the government not go in competition with the SPV here. Regulatory decision and political changes. And I mentioned this before as an example here in Europe or UK, is about when it changed the governments. Legal and regulatory framework changes, like taxes or currency. And this is, I have a project in one of the countries. There was a free, tax-free, and they start to impose new tax regime. And it's just in the region now. So this is critical now. They need some sort of understanding how they can move forward, especially for foreign investors. And default risk, and we have many big organizations have been went to administration for the last 10 years, many of the contractors. So this is a major risk for public sector. And I don't talk about secrets. It's here in the UK, Carillion, when I went to administration, they are engaged in many schools and other projects and hospitals here in the country. and has serious effect or impact on the project. It's not serious. It's serious, but it's have been managed, but it was a major risk for the project. Economical and financial, like interest rate and exchange rate and inflation, and for the force majeure. I'm trying. So it's one of the exit strategy if things go wrong, how to settle any dispute. So unresolved issues, we end up by unsettled claim, and unsettled claim end up by dispute. And hopefully, if we reach to this stage, could be managed by the negotiation or dispute resolution board. Some things could be imposed, or as well mediation. Or on the other side, if we cannot reach an agreement, we move to the next level, which is what we can call it expert determination. Assign an expert to give opinion and give judge about what is the right or wrong, or who has the right or the right entitlements and all these things. If unfortunately, if we failed during this process, we end up by arbitration or litigations. But concurrent with that, still mediation still there. Last slides for myself here is about comparing Saudi Arabia with other sample of 4 very related country economic wise, like Germany is heavily industrial country, or as well like a UK, which is service based economy, and Turkey, which is they have diversity. And you can see here the potential is a high potential of private sector engagements in GDP in Saudi is less than other country within the G20, and this explains a lot. And I think this will be for Engineer Hisham to introduce us more about Saudi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ahmed. Before we start with Hisham, allow me just to discuss with you and Hisham the aspect of risk, because I believe risk is not just something. The risk is 2 things here. It's a motivation, perhaps, for the government to share the risk with the private sector instead of taking all the risk on themselves. Perhaps it is a motivation to lower the risk because private sector is traditionally geared on efficiency and on delivery and on lowering whatever type of waste, which sometimes I say cannot be totally controlled in a bureaucratic system or in a governmental system. So it provides this type of agility and lowering the risk for the government. But on the other hand, there is the risk of the investor, and investors are very shy when they want to move, especially that I believe PPPs are not short term, they are mostly long term investments. So and you mentioned many factors like the stability, the legal system, the possible changes on demand, politics, and whatnot. So all these have to be considered by the private sector before they decide to bid. And of course, we always have a trade-off in terms of any contract. If I'm a contractor and you want to hold all the risk on me, you're gonna pay high. Okay, you're gonna pay a premium for me, like if I'm an insurance company, as if I'm an insurance. Okay, you're gonna pay more if you want me to handle all the risk until we negotiate and reach somewhere acceptable for both parties in terms of risk, which affects on all the contract and has a direct effect also on the success during the implementation. So these are my 2 cents for risk. What do you think, Hisham?
And as you rightly described it, concerns or risk of private sector, I can summarize it in 3 points. There are operation risks, construction risk, and the development risk. And I guess those kind of risk, demand risk, sorry. I think those kind of risks are considered in an early stage of any procurement process for any transaction currently, during the market sounding, which not only private sector players are invited, but also financial institutions who can, put some mitigation for this risk in the way they commercially structure the transaction, etc. I will come to that. Actually, it's part of the process where before you go to market or before you launch a bid, a long process is a robust process is in place, ensuring that this project has a shared risk formula in a way that will safeguard the private sector and ensure that the private sector delivery to the project.
Okay. So, shall we give the flag to Hisham, yeah, Dr. Ahmed? Okay. Okay, Hisham, please. Mustafa, give the controls, please, to Hisham.
Mustafa, you can carry on. Keep the control with you. I'll tell you to flip the slide whenever I ask you, please.
Okay, Engineer Hisham. So you just give me the signal and I'll move on to the next slide.
All right. Once again, good evening, everyone. And I'm really glad to present to you today and give you an overview of the privatization ecosystem and the opportunities in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And before I go to that, I will quickly have a view on the history of privatization in Saudi Arabia. As you all know, that PPP has been deeply rooted in the kingdom's DNA since the 80s, with the privatization of SABIC, that was followed by series of IPOs over the next 2 decades in banking, telecommunications, and mining. And during the same time, water project, we saw water project as the first PPP in water sector. In fact, this success triggered the other sectors to actually adopt PPPs, such as transportation sector with the development of Prince Mohammed bin Abdulaziz International Airport in Medina. I think that success resulted in a drastic change on how Saudi government procures projects. So PPPs have become the new norm of procuring relevant infrastructure and services projects. Subsequent to the launch of Vision 2030 back in 2016, NCB, or the National Center for Privatization and PPP, was established to become the center of excellence and expertise in privatization and PPP. Next, Mustafa. The vision for the kingdom, Vision 2030, in fact, the privatization program is one of 12 programs, and there are 2 main objectives which actually interlink with the privatization program in Vision 2030, which are unlocking state-owned assets to the private sector and privatize selected government services. So these 2 objectives were part of Vision 2030 overall objectives, and this mainly, and these two objectives are basically mandated by privatization program. Of course, increasing the efficiency is one of the goals for the National Center of Privatization and the privatization program. Increasing the private sector contribution to the GDP from currently 40%, or previously back in 2016, it was 40%, to 65% by 2030. Next, please. طبعا there are 16 sectors that have been identified for privatization, and these sectors range from social sectors to such as education, healthcare, sport, to the major infrastructure sectors such as utilities and transportation, for instance. Every targeted sector has its own governance, which is led by a supervisory committee that is shared by the minister of the sector and the minister of finance is a member in that committee. So in every sector we have kind of a governance to that sector. Of course, those committees, supervisory committees, are supported by working teams, which consist of sectors team and the National Center of Privatization, as well as a team of advisors who act as, if you like, a transaction team. Next, please. طبعا the solid legal framework is considered a cornerstone of where we are today. Ever since the beginning of Vision 2030 back in 2016, the announcement of Vision 2030, the first 5 years were actually, I would call them, the development and execution years. And the next 6 years to inshallah achieve 2030 is مرحلة قطف الثمار inshallah. I guess in the first years of the establishment of the National Center of Privatization, the development of the legal framework was a cornerstone. Speaking of the PSP law, for instance, this has been a game changer. And also the regulatory framework which was developed. As you all know, previously it took some projects over 3 years to in some cases to achieve full commercial close. And now with the development of the legal framework for privatization, it is demonstrated that this can be happen within 14 to 18 months for standard projects. Of course, that can go up to 24 months or 2 years in some projects. Most notably, in fact, however, is what the PSP law means to investors at large and international investors in particular. With the lack of laws and regulations before, it was very difficult for the international investors or any investors in particular to actually get into PPP projects in Saudi. The development of laws and regulations were based in best practices and the Saudi own experience in executing transactions since the turn of the century. Those frameworks and regulatory actually emphasizes on the transparency, fairness, a higher degree of regulatory the flexibility and the elimination of any structural conflict of interest.
Hisham, before we move on, we're talking here about governance.
Yes.
Okay. Yani when we talk about governance, we talk about transparency, about eliminating conflict of interest, about visibility, transparency, fairness, accountability, and whatnot. So what you're talking about now, right now, we do have a regulation, and it provides the full needed governance that will encourage and help investors to make a positive decision and perhaps mitigate some of their risks to enable the more interest, let's say, in participating in PPP projects.
Yes, true. Not only that, but also streamline the process of each and every transaction in a very robust governance type of thing. Yani, when we say any project will start with a pre-visibility, then before moving on to full detailed business case, there should be some level of approvals by relevant government entities such as IXPRO أو هيئة كفاءة الإنفاق, and then finalizing the detailed business case which involves market sounding, engagement with private sector, and understanding the best commercial structure for the project, engaging with financial institution. So all these steps, all the way to full commercial close and then financial close, is a result of that governance, basically. In addition to regulatory, of course, the privatization law. Privatization law is just is like any similar law in the government. We have the conventional or traditional procurement law. هذا نظام دولة يعني. This is يعني government law. نظام العمل هذا نظام دولة. Today, since 2021, we have something called privatization law, which is a law that governs the PPP procurement as a procurement method, just يعني similar to in the past we used to traditional procurement, which also governed by a traditional procurement law. Now we have نظام التخصيص, so it's نظام دولة يعني. فبالتالي هو ممكن جدا لعمليات التخصيص was established to actually have a clear and a robust process for PPP transactions. I hope I answered your question. Dr. Saadi?
I'm muted. Sorry. Yes, you did very well. Thank you. Please proceed.
Next, please. As I have mentioned earlier, the progressive legal tools streamline the governance, put a foundation for clear map to a successful procurement process. This process can be split into 4 phases, from sector prioritization to project preparation, then project procurement, to performance and contract management. It's worth يعني a couple of minutes highlighting the sector prioritization and governance, as this background will help يعني put into context the significance of Saudi privatization and PPP pipeline, which we will get into in few slides inshallah. طبعا each sector targeted is mandated to develop its own sector privatization plan. And with the support of the privatization center, this privatization plan involves a full diagnosis and a full review of the capital assets under each sector, and then identifying the privatization ecosystem within the sector. And from that comes the pipeline of each sector. This is the way how National Center for Privatization work closely with each sector, in fact, to identify potential pipeline under each sector. We move on to the next phase, which is the project detailed analysis. This involves preliminary studies, as we mentioned before, the pre-visibility for any project, the project proposal plan, etc., and then the market engagement, which involves the expression of interest phase, the RFQ, and then finally the RFP. And before launching the RFP, as we mentioned before, there is market sounding sessions with each in each project, which private sector participate, as well as the financial institutions. Last, the management contract and monitoring the performance. This is post the financial close of the project, and that the project go as planned, and have a regular performance checks and based on the KPIs of the project and the concession agreement. Next.
Just a second. Can you go back, Mustafa, please, to that slide? I have a question, Hisham, please. Now, I'm thinking, I'm an investor, and this is a long-term investment for me, which I will invest money, time, people, of course, lots of consultants here and there, assessments, and I might not win it. So the decision to participate in the first place, why should I participate in something I don't have a very good chance of winning? So there is a risk on the investor. I'm talking about the serious investor. Yes. And these risks are really, really important and can be calculated. Now, is it possible that sometimes the government wants, I'm not going to say names, X company, because they are number one in the country in this type of service, and they want them to carry on this engagement or this type contract. And in this manner, does this instrument or vehicle or law facilitate going all the way, but working with a sole provider when there is a reason for that, or no? It has to be competition.
Yes, PSP law, actually, or privatization law, governed all these types of competition. And when you have the public tender, you have the limited tender, where you can invite limited companies. And of course, this involves level of approvals by the concerned supervisory committee. As you rightly mentioned, some projects that you need the international expertise, the best in the world globally in that sector. And here comes the roadshows, the regular roadshows that the government throughout all concerned entities like MISA, National Center for Privatization, and others, they usually have those roadshows to promote those transactions and opportunities, through which B2B meetings were arranged with financial institutions and international investors who are experts in that field. So through market engagement, as I mentioned also before, you can rectify the level of experience of those companies interested in particular project. And before launching the expression of interest, you have the market sounding, where you can invite a sample of private sector operator, developers in that particular project, in addition to financial institution, to put together a commercial structure for that particular project. I believe that with those type of activities, you can ensure the level of participation in each project is up to standard.
Okay, thank you.
Here is just some sample of awarded projects. And in fact, there is an interesting study where it mentioned that from 2018 until 2023, in GCC, we have successfully awarded around 60 projects, out of which 30% were awarded in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And that tells now that Saudi Arabia is becoming a global benchmark in transaction that achieved financial close. Out of that statistics, if you compare it to countries like UK and Germany, who used to have vast experience in PPP and privatization, I think Saudi Arabia now is becoming the global benchmark in number of achieved transactions. So out of, let's for example, see in the environment and water and agriculture sector, we have 7 desalination plants that deliver a capacity of 3.8 million cubic meters per day, 6 water treatment with 1.7 million cubic meters per day, 4 floor milling companies أو ما كان يعرف سابقا شركات أو المطاحن. هذه طبعا خصصت بالكامل، كانت عبارة عن بيع أصول وليست PPP concession. هذه أصول كانت تملكها الدولة or assets that were owned by the government and now fully transferred to private sector. And 2 of which are now one of which are already listed company, and the other one is under way for an IPO, and the rest 2 are coming as well. For example, the transport and logistics services, the first asset sale in Saudi Airlines took place with the medical service center of Saudi Airlines. This is non-core business of Saudi. So the Saudi decided to sell 75% stake out of that medical center, and which was awarded to private sector healthcare provider, which is well known in the region. Other sectors like education, for instance, the school buildings in Makkah al-Munawwara, in Makkah al-Mukarrama والمدينة المنورة, 120 schools in wave 1 and 60 of which in wave 1 are in Medina region, and the other 60 in Makkah region. And this cater to 100,000 students. And also the recently announced public transport, the intercity buses project in the public transport sector, which break the monopoly of the public transport or the intercity buses transport between the cities. And now we have 5 separate concessions, which manages 76 routes, connecting 200 cities with a capacity of 6 million passengers annually. Next, please. Also, the 200 approved projects which were announced a year ago, in addition to the 300 future ones, those combined is estimated to around 100 billion euros. And this will cater to the national GDP, inshallah, and diversifying the economy and increasing the private sector contribution in the national GDP. These projects, about 100, have not been launched yet, and roughly 60 projects are expected to be launched this year and the coming year. Also, to touch on some statistics, we have about 4 million cubic meters of desalination capacity coming online, inshallah. 4,500 kilometers of roads, 4,000 hospital beds, and 15,000 housing units. And so, of course, this sound interesting, and of course, inshallah, this is a truly unique time to partner and invest in Saudi Arabia because of several factors: the long history of private sector participation, the commitment from the Saudi leadership, not only to PSP program, but the private investment landscape as a whole. The robust legal framework which was built around safeguarding the investors' rights. The extensive pipeline that we just mentioned. This all come together in an ambitious national privatization strategy, which translate to around 47 billion euros in contribution to national GDP by 2030. All within a stable G20 country, alhamdulillah, which sustain economic growth and excellent credit ratings. Finally, award to give a credit to a massive studies made by the private sector in the kingdom, from contractors to developers to our sophisticated local banks, all of whom are eager to couple their local capabilities and experiences and ambitions with international investors and financial institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hisham. Before we take the questions, I'd like to ask you one, just about this. How much percent of the PPPs are concluded by non-Saudi entities؟ يعني قديش عم تجلبوا استثمارات من الخارج؟
Well, you can direct your question to National Center for Privatization, because I'm not in a position to answer on their behalf. However, I think the foreign direct investment is channeled through privatization as one of the streamline of FDIs. And in fact, privatization managed to attract a lot of international expertise and investors, not to mention the transportation sector, where we have the first PPP airport in the kingdom, in Medina Munawwara, which is led by an international operator who manages around 70 airports worldwide. The appointment of 5 concessions, the awarding of 5 concessions in public sector, in public transportation, which involves also international operators as well. And the list is long, actually.
Yeah.
Many sectors managed to attract successfully foreign direct investment.
And I know several of them are JVs between international organizations and local large organizations, which will help them more to anchor themselves and localize better in order to succeed in this world. Thank you very much, Hisham. Before we start to take the Q&A and do our discussion, Mustafa, you have some other slides here you want to discuss?
That's the last slide.
About the upcoming events before we start the questions. Can you share them?
That's our last webinar. The executive webinar series ends with the Organizational Excellence Manifesto. I will also share it in an email as I send you all the certificate of attendance, the PDUs, and whatnot.
Okay. Which will be on October 9, Organizational Excellence Manifesto, which is very interesting. I will be moderating the session with 2 of my colleagues and brothers, Mr. Muhammad Al-Amri from the Public Authority of Transportation and Mr. Naufal Abdel Hadi from Marafiq. Naufal just launched a book yesterday or today, and we are going to refer to several of the tools of his book in our discussion on the Organizational Excellence Manifesto. And as the term tells you, it's not just about PMOs or not just about project. It's about the whole organization, be it the change part, which is as the British call it, the change, the projects, or the business as usual or operation, both working together hand in hand in order to realize this strategy. So you can register from now, and we're gonna announce this also on the social media. Thank you, Mustafa. What's next?
We have some attendees raising hands if you'd like to have a live session or delay till later. It's up to you, Doctor.
Yeah, just let's finish these slides and we'll start to do the interactions. Any other slides or we finished?
These are the slides mainly.
Okay. So this is where you can claim your PDU. And you're gonna send it to all.
Yes, of course. So we have Reem and Clement raising hands.
Okay. So if you can just stop this so that we can have focus on us.
Sure.
Please.
Stopping the presentation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Let's have Reem live with us.
Yes.
So Reem, you are now allowed to talk. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask our panelists.
Maybe she's not ready. If she's ready, please tell us.
Okay. We have Clement. Let's try again with Clement. Okay, Clement, you may unmute yourself as well and ask your question live.
So, since they might not be ready to speak now, let's put them on hold and start with the Q&A. We also have Burhan Omar raised his hand.
Go ahead, Burhan. Unmute yourself and ask your question live. I believe you are now.
Hello, السلام عليكم دكتور سعد، دكتور هشام، دكتور أحمد. أنا برهان عمر من الصومال. شكرا على المشاركة. I would like to ask one question. When we are talking about the BBs, mostly projects start from private. So those private sectors go to the governments, and then they will propose those infrastructure or services. So how we will have how we will have a competition between all those, because when one private sector goes to government, so the government will automatically give that private sector. So how we will have a competition for those BBP projects? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Burhan. Hisham would like to answer this briefly.
Okay. As I previously mentioned, without a robust governance, okay, you can't have fair competition, and you can't have transparent competition. As you mentioned here in this case, that the government grant a service provider or an operator, whomever, a project because they know he is the one who can deliver it, and did not unlimited itself to have a competition or a public competition where they can invite other companies to go through a transparent process. So the case in Saudi Arabia, as I mentioned, it was the governance comes first. The first 3 years after launching Vision 2030, privatization took time to establish legal framework, solid legal framework and regulatory, and also the privatization law. So all these tools and instruments was playing a major role to enable the private sector to participate fairly and transparently. Also, there are some projects that that you won't be able to get the quality of operator for that. Also, the regulations and the frameworks, all these legal instruments allows you to limited competition, but that has to follow certain conditions. And you can refer to it in the PSP law and the regulation for PSP.
Okay, thank you. Let's take a question from the Q&A. Ahmad Abdel Salam. Ahmad is our partner in Tunis from Drina Consulting. He's asking about what governance challenges arise within special purpose vehicles, SPVs, in public-private partnership, PPPs, due to misalignment between public and private sector interests. And how can these misalignments impact project outcomes and stakeholder trust? So he's talking about the misalignment between public and private sector interest. Now, I would like to answer a small answer for this before I ask you to provide your contribution, please, which is if there is a misalignment in the beginning, okay, not later on, then the private sector will not join. If the private sector does not feel interested, does not feel secure, does not see a reason financially and operationally, strategically for them to join, they will not jump in, because usually money and capital is shy. Okay, they will not move from a safety zone for their large funds to put it in high risk unless it is calculated risk. So this is the first part. But misalignments can occur later on, and I believe Hisham provided mitigations in the governance. He spoke about it. It's about how trust you have that these commitments will not change over time. And I believe you need some history, okay? You need some proof by others if you don't want to be the initiator, the first to do it. So it depends on the country. For Saudi Arabia, already they have a history, a very beautiful one. and many initiatives moved on to the commercial side. These are my 2 cents. What do you think, first of all, Dr. Ahmed, about this?
It will be not 100% alignment. It will be some sort of misalignment between both of them, because private sector has aim or KPIs to measure the success or this project is very interesting, and as well the same things for partners, for public sectors. But both of them, they are very keen about few things. So it's when we talk about the economics of the project, you can see the public sector is looking for social economics and looking for certain value for money. In private sectors, looking for return of investment. It's not, yeah, he's keen to as bypass or by products to give the value for money and get the satisfaction for public sector. Is he can make the profit. He need to satisfy the customers by the end of the day, or the not customers, the partners, the public sector here.
Yeah.
So it's usually every single project, either or any business, usually the partners or the security, usually it's not all of them, they have the same agenda, but there are some sort of overlap between them, and that's what we need to manage it. And the differences between them, this is the risk and how we can manage it. And that's with when Hisham, he mentioned that before as well about the governance, which is the public sector. They developed in Saudi Arabia for 3 years. They put in like a roadmap how to manage the project, to manage this delta between the public interest and private sector interest.
Okay. يعني على مبدأ درهم وقاية خير من قنطار علاج. This is why you spend a lot of time and money in the initiation phases before you actually embark. You do a real business case, okay, not a cosmetic business case. It cannot be a cosmetic because many parties will be involved unless everything is scrutinized once, twice, and 3, 4 times, and everybody's happy about it. And there are funders and bankers who know who to dig deep, especially on these financial models and whatnot. So if there is an elephant in the room, I believe the elephant will be discovered in the first phases within, which is around 2 years, more or less. But things can still go south. So what do you think, Hisham?
In simple words, this relationship has to be a win-win situation. Government has to achieve a value for money, in why they decided to offer this asset or service to private sector to participate. Private sector as well has to be profitable. The private sector wouldn't be interested to come to any project without profitability. So profitability is a big objective for private sector, and the government has to achieve value for money. So through the development of the commercial structure with the participation of private sector during early stages of the bid or pre-bid process, the market sounding, the engagement of financial institution and reaching the most favorable commercial structure that meet these objectives of both private sector and public sector.
Okay, thank you. Now, another question from our friend Muhammad Sahibani, who's from the KFSH and RD. He's the EPMO director. And my dear friend as well, what is the difference between outsourcing and privatization? So who'd like to answer?
If you allow me, Doctor, again, in simple words, outsourcing basically is a service contract, which not similar to privatization when you offer an asset to private sector to buy it. this is a complete transfer of asset, which involves valuation, and also private sector has to do their own due diligence to whether they are going to buy this asset or not. I'll give an example, the clubs أو عملية بيع الأندية كأحد المشاريع اللي تندرج تحت إطار الاستثمار في الرياضة اللي أعلن عنها سمو ولي العهد العام الماضي في جون 2023. That was followed by the acquisition of the 4 major clubs, الهلال، النصر، الاتحاد، الأهلي, by PIF. This is an exemption of privatization. The rest of the pipeline, which will be launched soon, involves other clubs in هذه كلها عمليات بيع أصول أو يعني asset transfer. Private sector will be invited to bid for those entities and buy them. في outsourcing, it's basically service contract. You don't really offer the asset itself.
Okay. And in terms of outsourcing, it's not necessary outsourcing the risk. Not always. Sometimes you get people on secondment basis, and you hold the risk on them. Okay, or what you can ask for, if you don't like them, replace them or just terminate. But the risk, you still own the risk in terms of outsourcing in many cases. Type. A question, there are several questions by Ahmad Ibrahim, a series of questions. I'm not gonna take all, I'm gonna take 1 or 2 of them. So, could you please explain the amount of contracts that would make PPP feasible? Also, what are the contract forms usually used in PPP? What are the time frames acceptable for PPP projects? In PPP, does it mean 50% share in the project, or does it make a difference, a different collection of partnership? First of all, Ahmad, I advise you to take the certification of CP3P, because it will answer these and all the other questions. Before we take Ahmad's question, one topic we did not discuss, which is the capacity building. So if an organization wishes to investigate whether or not PPP is the right thing for them, the World Bank outsourced the content of their guideline, which is a basis. I believe NCP utilized this basis and trained people and got certified on it. And they provide these certifications. We are one of their partners, authorized training organization for them. But this would give people who are in some leading technical positions on the know-how within the life cycle, which is essential and important. But we always face a problem. What about the board? The board is not going to go and attend 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. They are not going to study. They are not going to go and do an exam. They never do. They send their people. But there is an amount of knowledge that is required by them to know how to make decisions regarding to orient their people to investigate PPP in this investment or that. And for that, what we usually offer is not merely the certification, but an executive workshop, which is usually shorter, could be half a day, 1 day, whatever, could be somewhere outside in Europe or wherever, just to provide them with the executive satellite overview on the understanding of the PPP and help them in the why, in the selection. Should I use this instrument or that, and how to make executive decisions? So I would like your advice on both, Dr. Ahmad and Hisham, especially on approaching executives to convince them or to give them the tool to decide better.
Workshop or like what Harvard doing or other organizations or universities doing for executives with case study for a project, or for could be not a real life project, but could be something for data protection or all these things. This could be a very good modules for executives in different organizations. Something is quite interesting from the discussion I have from the question and answers here, or questions raised by the attendees as well, is something maybe fundamental for the triple B is risk share, and as well the durations, how long the project cannot be like a 1 year or 2 year is a triple B project. So it's having the risk share element and having the long-term durations. This is need to be even the executive who has limited time to invest to understand the project. Once they make a decision, or they say yes and sign the box or take the box for go or no go at the end, after his team do all the analysis, this is a long-term engagement and with the risk share. So this is important. This is something most of the executives need to be on different organizations need to be aware about it. And they need to fully understand the amount of risk and amount of long-term engagement of his organization, either from public or private sector. So hopefully I covered here.
Yeah. Thank you. And Hisham, how did you help spread awareness for the C-level, for the people who can move the money, the funds, as investors, especially that you started from scratch in Saudi Arabia, and nobody before that knew a lot about PPP?
Of course, building capacity in sectors identified for privatization wasn't an easy task. It was challenging because of the lack of expertise, lack of experience in PPP. So building knowledge through the concerned government entities, such as institutes that are under Ministry of Finance, for instance, the NCB knowledge management. They also have programs with the sectors identified for privatization, where they offer regular trainings and awareness sessions organized in association with World Bank, with organization like yourself and others, other government entities like SIDF, for example. Also, they have their training programs, and so I think now we have a variety of training programs that aims to build capacities within those sectors in subjects like privatization, project finance, or related topics to PPPs.
Excellent, thank you. So now, with respect to Ahmad's question about the amount of contracts would make PPP feasible, and the contract forms and time frames and shares. Briefly, because we still have 5 minutes.
Let me take the last one.
Okay.
Revenue sharing is not the default model of PPP. In some projects, there are no revenue sharing, where the government actually takes all the demand risk on its side, just because it will offer that service, and the aim of offering that service is the continuity of that service. For example, التعليم والصحة، هذه قطاعين those are very critical sectors to all citizens, and the country's commitment towards offering those services free of charge will continue. Like how we are having PPP projects on those sectors. We're having PPP projects in those sectors that the government take on its responsibility, the spending over the lifetime of the project, is how you structure that spending in a way that ensure there is a value for money. So instead of before inviting or offering this service through traditional procurement and spend 1 billion upfront for a contractor to come and build that project and leave after the construction, and then engaging with operation and maintenance operator to come and the government continue spending on that project. This is not a feasible way. But through PPP, you can ensure the full concession comes at the beginning of the project and receive their payment over the lifetime of the concession, 25 years or 30 years. And at the end of that, you will have a value for money, the government saving out of that project compared to the public sector comparator where the government previously offered it through traditional procurement.
Okay, very interesting. And in this case, the consortium or PPP provider would have one client, which is the government, and a secure bill that will be paid every year to them. So they bring the demand risk to zero in these special cases, and it becomes a win-win, as you mentioned, for all. Now we still have 2 minutes. Let me take 2 questions and close. Interesting from Mahmoud Yunus, how is project management handled on PPP projects? Well, I'm going to answer quickly, then give it to Ahmed. Project management, if you consider this whole life cycle as a project, okay, from the owner in the beginning or the government, you might be able to manage it as a whole project. But actually, the execution comes only after the procurement is over and not before. Okay, so you will have the execution project life cycle implemented fully once the award is concluded. Then you implement the project from A to Z. Then you go on to the operation side. Ahmed, do you like to add something on this?
I agree with you. It's about one phase. It's one of 6 phases, or one of 6 phases within the cycle of the whole PPP project is the project itself, which is the fully project management, as we know, all of us from background of project management or PMI or construction industry. But from employer side or from government public sector side, they have the full 6 stages of the life cycle, which is need lawyers, you need financial doing financing model, economists, and how to manage all this input together during this life cycle of the three phases just before the award. That's what we have in the PPP. So it's need a bit more. Definitely, it's in any government or any public sector, for Ministry of Health or certain ministries or something like that, they need a PMO there to manage these 4 phases of the cycle of the project before even running as a traditional project management construction project.
It's more like a program, a program than a project aiming to specific benefits with first of all, the owner of this program is the government until they actually sign and make the award. Then the ownership moves on to the others without stopping to be an influential stakeholder as the government. Okay, but it is a specific engagement, whereby if you're talking about a PMO, the PMO ownership goes from one side to the other within the life cycle of the okay. And the last question, Zaid Bali. Some countries are still reluctant to PPP. How to convince them to move forward with the PPP projects? I'll tell you, book a meeting with Hisham and he will convince them. What do you think, Hisham?
Yes.
Depends. It depends.
It depends. Actually, it's through looking to successful benchmarking with other countries that are successful, looking at their experience, learning from them. This is how they can start to decide. But I believe there should be a will of implementing governance, transparency, moving the money from the pockets of some leaders to actually putting them to serve the citizens. Okay. And this high important thing, okay, of being ethical, working for your country, for the future of your people. If you have this will, then I think they can start to consider PPP, because if they want the country as their own house or shop or company, PPP will not help. There are too many eyes, too many audits, too many partners that will uncover any illegal matter. Would you like, before we finish and close the session, to add any comment before we close tonight?
That's something quite important from public point of view. It is the GDP itself. Many of the countries now, they have major budget deficits. This is number one. Number two is the multiplier effect. Multiplier effect of GDP is once we have the private sectors engaged in PPP project, the cause and effect, or how they doing within the multiplier effect, is increase the GDP of the economy significantly, and as well the efficiency. So there are many things. It's not. I'm very pro for PPP. So it's I'm a little bit, I can say a little bit biased here, but that's my professional opinion in different cases, in different projects I was engaged. And it's serving the country very well, serving the economy very well, serving the citizen very well. If it's managed properly, it's according to what Engineer Hisham he mentioned before us about putting the governance properly and all this. What's in Saudi, they've done it for almost 3 or 4 years, building all this governance for the PPP project.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you.
Hisham.
Thank you very much. I have nothing to add, Wallah.
Okay. Wallahi, it is our pleasure to have you both tonight. I really benefited a lot. I thank our participants for staying with us that much late, and looking forward to see you in our last webinar this year, which is on October 9, about the Organizational Excellence Manifesto. Until then, looking forward to meet you again. Stay safe, and thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.